So there comes a point, it may happen, in stages, or you may have have layers to this sinking in, but a point of really realizing the cost of awakening. And really viscerally feeling the fact that what's happening is that you're leaving humanity behind and you're never going to come back. At first, that was really painful for me, because all I had ever really wanted in my life was to feel like I belonged, to feel accepted, to like really feel unconditionally loved, to just feel like normal, whatever that means, whatever idea I had of what that meant. But this is truly leaving humanity behind. You leave the dream behind and humanity goes with it. The state of humanity goes with it. The ability to engage with humanity in the same way. The ability to placate people's beliefs or the ability to placate the dream or prop up the dream in any way. Like, that dissolves. And the drama, the ability to engage with drama or gossiping about people or really talking about other people at all, honestly. It's just not interesting. But even like talking about your own drama and stories, because the belief in that goes. When the belief in that goes, the belief in all of it goes. Like, you see through this dream, it's the only really dream there is. It's just the whole thing pops and there's no longer an ability to engage in the same way. And, just here recently I've been life has kind of like pushed me to be around people more after being in the woods alone for so long. And it's been really different, but really beautiful in a way. Really beautiful, because there's just such an intimacy. Like, the place that you connect with others from is totally different. Like, I don't really find it that I'm able to like listen to the words much anymore. It's like listening below that. There's like an energetic movement just below that. And like that's primary. That's primary. Like, paying attention to the words and the beliefs and the fixations or the dream is really challenging, actually. It's very emotionally, or not emotionally, it's very energetically taxing and draining. It can still be done, but the interest in it isn't really there anymore. But, I've had opportunities to be around people more, and I went to a wedding this past weekend, and it was really beautiful. It was really wonderful to, to be around people. And it feels so different than it used to. There's no more there's no more judgment that somebody should be a certain way, or that something should be a certain way, or that something is good or bad. It's kind of strange too. Like what I noticed is that there's really no judgment. Not even like, yeah, it's like that layer that's just below words is so primary that I almost can't really see the fixations much anymore either. Like when the fixations are strong, it's very obvious, but like I used to be really concerned about like what people thought of me, or maybe there would be like a sense of like self-consciousness or shame or worry or anxiousness, and that's just, it's not there anymore. There's just such an ease in relating. It's still very overwhelming, you know, to this system after just like being in solitude for such a long period of time, that it's really tiring, you know, to be around people. And I really have to find the space to retreat and like spend time alone when I'm around people for long periods of time especially. But something that I noticed was that there were a handful of times, this happened several times over the course of the weekend and the events that I attended for this wedding, of really just like, it felt like a metaphor, you know, for awakening, of just kind of like sitting on the sidelines. I remember Adyashanti telling a story about this too, but I just like it, like really experienced it, of kind of sitting and just looking out at this like room of people and these crowds of people, and just having this moment of just knowing that I've left that, that I can't occupy that anymore. It's not possible. Like that I will never see the world in that way again, in the old way or in the identified way. Like I will never be able to take the dream seriously again. So there is just like this kind of looking on, and it's not like a I'm better, like it's just, it's just very simple. There's a simplicity, and like, yeah, that old way, that paradigm is dead. That paradigm is dead. And so there was an acknowledgement of that, and like really feeling it, you know. But then it's like just walking right back into it, walking back into the craziness, and walking onto the dance floor, you know, and just joining in it, like joining in the humanness. And so it's like this, it just felt like this moment of just like this beautiful interplay of seeing life for what it is, and like seeing the simplicity, and seeing the dream, and seeing illusion, and seeing fixation, and it being so clear, like that's not forgotten anymore. But then this like joining into humanity, and it's like the dance of formless and form, the dance of everything and nothing, the dance of I don't know how else to explain it. Just the dance of life, you know, the dance of truth. It's really beautiful. You know, my nature has always been pretty quiet. in social situations and a lot of observing, but I find that much more these days. There's not really a need to say things or to engage in certain ways, or like there's not, and I realize all that pressure was all internal, like this internal pressure to be a certain way or to show up a certain way or to try to be perceived in a certain way, but it's just free now. It's just like this just shows up the way it shows up, and there's an ease in that, and it's so wonderful. So I guess that's humanity gets left behind, humanity's gotten left behind, but then the paradox is that there's a joining, like an intimacy with humanity that couldn't be seen before. I couldn't see it through the masks. Like I couldn't see the absolute perfection and the freedom. Like even in the fixation, even, in the face of fixation, like the fixation is free. And it never wasn't free. Like the illusion is free. There's no need to be contrary or to try to convince anybody of anything, or to try to get somebody to see a perspective, It's just like a joining with an experience completely. There's so many of these big black carpenter ants, and I just love watching them. They're so curious. Just like crawl all over you and kind of fight with each other. It's pretty awesome. They're fun to watch. And that leaving humanity behind, so I want to maybe be clear about something. So, if I had heard that some time ago, it would have sounded very alluring to me, because there probably would have been, a formulation or grasping onto an idea that leaving humanity behind meant I would have fixated on that, and I think I did for a while. I fixated on the notion of leaving humanity behind, because there was such deep suffering in me that I was like, yeah, I felt awkward in my skin and self-conscious, and there was just such a deeply embedded sense of shame and unworthiness that the notion of leaving humanity behind felt really sexy, and because I was so disconnected from humanity, from my own humanity, from my own body, from the senses. Like I was so disembodied, and the notion of leaving humanity behind felt really good, or felt really, I just grasped towards it. I sought it out, because I had an idea that would mean that I would get to bypass human stuff. But that's really not it at all. There's moments of just very human things coming up, in life, but the difference now is that there could be maybe just an example, like a jealousy or something that comes up, and it's like, oh, that, there's a discord there, and in the past I would have kept something to myself, or really struggled with it internally, and felt shame about something, or created a story around an experience or an event, and just created this world of suffering. But now it's just like something comes and then I speak it. And there's not the shame in it. There's not the insecurity in it. There's just like, even that is free. It's like in the face of leaving, you know, when I say leaving humanity behind, it's like leaving the common state of humanity behind. But in that, there's a joining with your own humanity in such an intimate way that like everything that comes is free to come. It's free to express. It's free to be shared. But the difference is that it's without story. The story is what changes. So the mind wants to create story about why something is happening, or it wants to blame somebody, or it wants to maybe like a feeling comes up. I'm going to use jealousy because that was something, you know, that I just like an emotion or like a thing that came up. But like you see jealousy in animals, you see it in children. Like it's very natural to have things like that happen. But the mind is going to use that to reinforce a belief that like I must not be good enough, or I must not be worthy, or like to reinforce an ingrained pattern of feeling shameful, or to reinforce a story, to reinforce suffering, rather than the simplicity of, oh, there's just jealousy here and it's okay to say that. And it's what changes is it's communicated with a simplicity, and there's nothing to defend anymore. Like there's nobody here to defend. There's nobody here to be unworthy. So in that sense, like those things come and they're seen clearly, and it's just like there's a clarity and a simplicity in those movements of, you know, in this case, jealousy, in this example, jealousy, or with sadness, or with frustration or irritation. It's just a very simple movement in the way that maybe you would see expressed in an animal. You know, I have a cat named Midnight who he's been such a big teacher, you know, because their boundaries are, you know, with anybody who has cats, if they have a boundary that you cross, you get swatted, and it's really simple. It's a simple movement. They shake it off, they move on. There's not this story that like, I'm doing this because this person did this and they shouldn't have done that, and because they did do that, that means this about me. And you know, there's like all this narrative that the mind cultivates around that. And that goes, like that's part of what goes. And then the whole system, I've noticed like the whole system starts to reorganize. So like this time for me there's been like this rewiring on like a cellular level. And there's still these ways that old patterns are kind of like wiggling, like working their way out of the system. And it's just met differently, and it's seen differently, and things are expressed much differently and much more simply, and it just, stuff moves through it. There's no like, it doesn't stick anymore. So like those emotional things, like those human things, they don't stick, they're not sticky. There's not the fixation around them, or the story of what it means about me, what it means about other, because me, the sense, the feeling of self and other disappears. So it couldn't mean anything about me or them, because it's seen, it's experienced. It's not, the weird thing is like, it's not an experience, but the distance between self and other collapses. So there's no longer the sense of me and other. Like it's seen that it's not separate. So the movements couldn't possibly mean anything about self or other. But there's a way that those beliefs like live in the body. They live in the system, and they have to kind of work their way out, and join with that presence. So there's like the presence, the silent, empty, aware presence is like taken into those places as those movements come, and maybe like there's an old pattern that starts to arise, and that silent, empty presence is taken into those to free those places where those patterns live in the system and live in the body, So awakening is like, it's this beautiful dance of leaving the common state of humanity behind, and you will never see the world the same way again. The whole world disappears. Your internal world disappears. There's no longer an ability to look inside and self-reflect. And, when I'm interacting with people, there's not an awareness of myself. There's no awareness of myself. It's just full presence with the senses. There's no awareness of like, how do I look right now? Or how is this person perceiving me? Or what are they thinking about right now? Or there's no like judgment of how they look or something that they're doing, or that there's no like comparison, that thing where like often we look at people and we like, there's this like habituated comparison happening on some level. Like that goes. The referencing, there's nothing here to reference anymore. So there's just the presence with what's happening. And so it's this beautiful dance of like leaving the common state of humanity behind, and also being there's such an intimacy with life, with others, even though the sense of other goes, like language still has to be used, there's such an intimacy and love, like such a deep, unconditional love. Even if somebody's sitting, like, saying nasty things to you, that love doesn't get cut off. It doesn't mean you sit and take it or allow shitty behavior. It doesn't mean that you don't set boundaries, but that connection is primary. And so there's been this whole like new learning period of like how to engage with the world without that point of reference, without a sense of somebody being here. It's weird and and kind of messy sometimes, and it's a lot of fumbling and boundary setting, and but it's also really beautiful. It's very human. It's so human and so gorgeous. But leaving humanity behind, like, there was such a grief in that for me. There was a really deep grief when I really realized, some time ago, probably a little over a year ago, or probably longer than that, but when it really hit me that that's what was happening, there was a really profound grief in that. Because there was this knowing that, like, I'm not going to be able to connect with people in the same way anymore, Did my microphone turn off? No, okay, it's still going. Well, there was a really deep grief in it. So I had to really process a lot of grief. And just like really accept like a level of aloneness, because it's knowing that like 99.9% of humanity will never understand this. They can't. I mean, that's not true. Like, it's what they are. So on some level, like, it can't be forgotten. It's just obscured. It's not that they can't understand it. It's that, that's the wrong way to say it. It's like the primary way that you see the world changes. And there's this chasm that you can't cross. It's uncrossable. And there's such a grief in that because it's so deeply alone. And initially it was really lonely. But then there's just like there's this aloneness in it that like, and the way that you move through the world changes. There's no longer like, you no longer like think through things or consider things or weigh your options, or the mind isn't involved in the movement anymore. It comes from a deeper place. It's so much more subtle and nuanced. It's not even really nuanced. It's actually quite obvious when it, but there's like a learning and like following that, you know. And so it's been like a pretty weird adjustment. And that adjustment is still ongoing. Like the way that I relate has changed a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. Everything has changed. Everything's different. And also nothing is different. So weird. But you leave humanity behind, and there will probably be a grief in that. It's probably going to be really hard for a little while. But through leaving, there's then a joining. There's an intimacy that comes online that is so potent and so profound and so special. It's sacred. It's the most sacred thing. The most sacred thing. It's the only thing.